The Retirement Cafe Podcast, episode 26, Why Growing Older Needn't Mean Slowing Down, with the Irongran Edwina Brocklesby.
Retired or thinking about retirement? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe Podcast. In each episode, we bring you an important conversation with insight, tips and knowledge, all designed to help you live a fulfilling and successful life in retirement. Here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner and Accredited Later Life Advisor, Justin King.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Retirement Cafe Podcast. If you're new here, a very warm welcome to the show, and if you've joined me before, I'm delighted to welcome you back. Now, for Christmas, I bought my wife Kathy a book, which she devoured within a few days. In fact, I bought her the audio version of the book, and she listened to it mostly during her indoor bike training sessions. I know this book and its author have inspired my wife on her own sporting journey. The author of that book, Edwina Brocklesby, known as Eddie to her friends, is my guest today. Eddie is maybe better known as the Irongran, which is the title of her book, as she is the UK's oldest female Ironman triathlete at the age of 76. Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Thank you very much.
So I've been really looking forward to chatting with you, Eddie, all about your sporting feats. But for people who don't know you, could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, I grew up in Bristol, and then with no physical activity at all, really, went off to uni, tried a tiny bit of long jumping and hurt my muscles so much that I never did any further athletics when I was at university either. That was at Nottingham. Then 3 children and followed really by 50 years of social work in childcare field, child protection, adoption and fostering. So no time for any physical activity really. Wow. And didn't start until I was 50.
Ah, okay. And what made you take up sport at 50?
Well, that was another sort of link with Nottingham, really. I went up to Nottingham to watch a friend do the marathon up there. And, of course, the route is all around the university. And I thought, well, I could never do a marathon, but maybe I could try and do a half marathon on that route. And I came back to my husband, who we'd met at Nottingham Uni, came back to him and said, that's what I'd like to do. And he said, you couldn't even run as far as Northampton, which I think was about 3 miles away. And I think it was that challenge that got me going. And that's probably quite an important lesson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I will. And I did.
Well done, you. So how old were you when you did your first half marathon?
Yeah, that was 50.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I guess the important lesson there is not a lot of physical activity up until then. Tiny bit of squash. But nothing of any significance. So it's never too late to get started, I think, would be a key theme.
And then what on earth possessed you to kind of move towards Ironman distances? For those who don't know, could you let people know how far an Ironman is?
Yes, an Ironman is a 3.8 kilometre swim. It's 180 kilometres on the bike, and then it's a full marathon. Many hours. I think it's 16 hours and 6 minutes is probably the fastest I've done.
Wow. So just to kind of put that into old money, so we know, I think most people are familiar that a marathon's 26 miles, is that right?
Yeah.
And that bike ride sounded a kind of 105 miles, is that?
Yes, it's over 100 miles.
Over 100 miles?
Yeah.
And then the swim, what's that? Is that a couple of miles, is it? Or?
Yes, a good couple of miles, isn't it? Yeah.
A couple of miles.
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
So I couldn't swim. I had to learn to swim. I managed about a width when I was a kid. One width doing breaststroke with my head above water. So 53 before I actually learned to swim. I still don't swim terribly well, I have to say.
Right.
Despite a lot of people's efforts. So yes, I did my first triathlon when I was 58.
Gosh, fantastic. I presume that wasn't an Ironman.
No, that was a fantastic London triathlon. You know, the experience of cycling down the north of the embankment to the House of Parliament is just incredible.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it takes. Did you mention a second ago that it takes you about 16 hours to complete an Ironman?
Yes, it did. 16 hours, 6 minutes, I think is the fastest. No, I've been longer than that too. There's usually a cut-off point when they have to open the roads on the bike too. So although I've attempted 10 Ironman triathlons, I've only actually completed 6 of them because I've been cut off on the bike or as not having made the cut-off time.
Okay. Okay. It's still, gosh, it's a long time to be exercising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking those 10 Ironmans into kind of consideration, what would be the highlight?
Well, Lanzarote Ironman is a fantastic race. It's a very tough race because it's very hilly, but I just love that island. I've gone out a lot to Club La Santa there and trained with the Serpentine Running Club. Has been a key part of my life for 20 years now when I moved back to London after my husband's death. And I think a great friendship group. And so every year we go out as a fairly large group to Lanzarote. So I know the island fairly well. So to do the Ironman there is fantastic. I've also gone out and watched my son several times doing that Ironman. And there have been 1 or 2 years where we've both done it.
Oh, wow. That must be
he's
lovely.
home and back to the finish line and drinking in the bar for many hours before his mother gets in.
Marvellous. What time does your son complete them in?
Oh, significantly faster than me.
Yeah.
He's doing it again in May. I think 11 hours-ish, something like that.
Well, in essence, he's got it easier.
Oh, I think it's a lot easier for him.
Yeah. If you can do it in 11 hours and you're taking 16, I mean, I know who's got the tough job. You need the pat on the back, not your son, I'm afraid. So
we've all done, as a family, with my 2 sons and son-in-law and my adopted son, we've all done New York Triathlon together, which isn't an Ironman distance, but I think that's been one of the real highlights of my life, just the experience of swimming in the Hudson and then riding out across to Bronx and then running in Central Park. And actually the first time we ever did it, I beat my sons on the swim solely because I was playing it very safe and I was staying a little bit more away from the bank than they were. Of course, none of us realised that the current was greater in where I was. So I beat them, but never again since.
Amazing bit of tactics there.
Absolutely. It's just that we didn't realise.
I'd claim the tactic. Why not? So, what's the next challenge for you?
The big one is Race Across America. Now, that's a fairly famous race coming from the west coast to the east coast, and we are doing it as a 4-women relay team. We're the oldest team, or will be the oldest team to have started it, because our average age will be 70. Although I have to say they need me in the team to bring that average age up. But yes, very anxious and looking forward to that. So you relay across in 2 pairs, effectively, with a crew of 10 people, 3 vehicles with us. And we go hour on, hour off for 6 hours, and then the other 2 take over. And then my partner Hills, and I go off again 6 hours later. So we have a cut-off time of 9 days. Quite scary when I think about it. We did it 11 years ago, but gosh, I was 11 years younger then.
Wow. This is on bicycles, presumably, is it?
Yeah, oh yes, sorry, yes.
It's not. There's no running or swimming involved.
No, absolutely not. And actually, it's a big day for me today. After we finished, I'm going off on my new Live Giant bike to go around Richmond Park and try out my new bike. So really looking forward to that.
Oh, lovely. It's a fine spring day down here in Waterford, Christchurch. So hopefully it is for you there in London. Yeah, the temperature's starting to improve a little bit, isn't it? So so new bike. Actually, a client of ours did the Ram race a couple of years ago.
Oh,
and
okay.
They came second, I think.
Gosh, as a solo?
No, that was a 4-man team. So I think it's the same as yourself. That sounds very similar to yourself.
Okay. Oh, right. Great.
I appreciate, from listening to his war stories about the amount of training that you must be putting in.
Yeah. I'm certainly doing hour on, hour off on my turbo. Thanks very much to Swift, sort of tech system on my bike, which is absolutely fantastic. The best of gaming technology, I'm quite sure. But yeah, it's pretty brilliant when you see Mark Cavendish overtake you going up Box Hill. You know?
So this is you sitting on an indoor bicycle
and
looking at a screen and in essence competing against other people sitting on bicycles in their homes looking at screens.
Yeah. My son went on 5 minutes before me this morning at 6:30.
Wow. And just to give you an idea, I think again you just gently said an hour on and then an hour off. How many hours will you do today?
Probably only 6 hours. I'm out this evening, so I'll just do my 3 hours of training today, which is probably about average of my biking training. I'll do the outdoor bike a couple of times, and I'm certainly. Oh no, of course I'd forgotten. I'm going around Richmond Park as well a couple of times today, so it'll probably be 4 hours on the bike today.
Right.
Sitting in, yeah.
Gosh, that's and do you get a day off in the week at all?
I'm not very good at that. I have a training program from Annie Emerson, and I'm not very good at my rest day. But yes, I was resting yesterday. So first time for too long.
And what do you? I presume that you must also have some quite significant kind of diet that you must be, to be able to do this type of training.
I've always had quite a lot of the high five sort of gels and protein recovery and that sort of thing. In general diet terms, I have a very good breakfast always. Fair level of protein throughout the day that is important. I think the more important that protein input is, and a reasonable amount of fiber too. So I guess overall it's not too bad a diet. Yeah.
Gosh, there's quite a lot to take in there. So there's obviously a huge amount of training. What else do you manage to fit into your life?
Oh, well, I'm a mum. I'm a grandmum of four kids, but primarily Silverfit is still taking huge amount of my hours. I'm the founder, CEO of the charity, getting older people to lead a more healthy and sociable lifestyle with some success. So, that takes me quite a few hours too.
So could you tell me a little bit more about Silverfit?
Yes, we started 4 or 5 years ago, running a session in Hyde Park and then Burgess Park. We're now in 17 different venues in London. So the idea is that older people, I say older because we actually, in order to attract premenopausal women where you can really have the greatest impact. We welcome people from the age of 45 upwards. The actual average age is about 68 of people coming. So they come to a session, there's a sort of social opportunity of meeting and greeting and registering with volunteers that help us on that. And then they go off and do an activity of choice for about an hour. And that activity will vary according to the venue, and it ranges from Nordic walking, Pilates, to the silver cheerleading, which is enormous fun, walking football. So a range of different activities in different venues. And then absolutely crucially, people meet back up again socially afterwards. So we do a fairly good amount of research and sort of data analysis and know that it's the social element that keeps people coming, which is so important for our aging population, isn't it? But,
absolutely. So what's the mission with Silverfit? What's the passionate purpose that you've got here?
I think it's healthier, happier aging, and I think absolutely importantly to try and make it fun. I think that word doesn't get used enough, does it? But I think it's the key factor for our aging population. And the greatest cost to the NHS is probably falling over in older people. And I think that if we can help people get their strength up in their muscles and avoid falling over, and also getting out of the house, avoiding the loneliness of aging too, that's really, really important. So we've got very good evidence that, it does make a difference. And so part of our sort of mission would be to campaign to, as an organisation that's run by older people, for older people. I think that's quite a useful one, the one that we started off with, that it's never too late to start and change your lifestyle and, adopt a happier, social and more physically active lifestyle as we age.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, Silverfit is running, you say, 17 branches. Is that all around London at the moment?
It's all around London, and I think we're looking very hard at how we could expand and what the mechanism to do that would be. It's not easy. I mean, I'm the greatest admirer possible of Part Run. I think it's an absolutely brilliant concept. But ours is a little bit more complex than that, because we do need to have instructors who are very well qualified and experienced in working with older people. There are a few risk factors there.
Right.
So we're looking at whether we could expand that model or how we could be helped to do so. Yeah.
Okay. And if people want to know more about yourself and Silverfit and maybe how they could contact you to look at maybe arranging or trying to set up a Silverfit in their area, how would they go about, finding out more about it all and getting in contact with you?
My email is fairly straightforward. It's edwina@silverfit.org.uk. There's a website, silverfit.org.uk as well. So hopefully, the message could come through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's a vital message for our audience, and whenever I chat to people, as they suddenly, possibly in retirement, they actually have more time, possibly more time to do exercise than as you mentioned that. As the children grow up and you've got the opportunity to, and you haven't got the work constraints, a lot of people are spending a lot of time commuting or what have you when they're working, and then they've got family responsibilities. That exercise is sadly one of the things that possibly gets put down the priority order.
I think that's probably right, because what you've got, though, is people losing their social networks, isn't it? And not necessarily within their local community having that able to replace that. We've got very generous Sport England funding in Silverfit now for 3 years, looking explicitly at this issue of retirement. So, how do active people who are retiring stay active? Why do active people become inactive? If you're inactive before retirement, how do you then become active? And the 4 options there that Sport England are funding us to look at. And then we're going to start with Silver Saturdays, which is going to be quite fun, targeting that retirement and seeing how effectively we can market that. And that, I think, will start in about June in Burgess Park, which is an area of perhaps greater economic, social deprivation, which is again where we know we can make the greatest difference.
Absolutely, and from what I read before speaking to you today was that you're trying to make Silverfit available for everyone, for all economic scenarios, so that if people can't they can't afford expensive gyms or expensive sports, etc. Your aim is to make this available for everybody.
And I think it's also to get the message out that, preferably with a friend, go out and walk around the block, and maybe the next time walk that bit faster, and then maybe, a few weeks later, just the odd bit of jogging, but to steadily build up, and hopefully, with a friend that you can, that they're going to turn up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and therefore there's a sort of slightly greater compulsion, if you like, to turn up and meet them and go with them. Yeah. And I think that's quite an important message. We can't all have Silverfits right on our doorstep, but it is possible to get out and be that bit more active.
Absolutely.
There is, a lot available. And it's not all just in the gyms. Age UK do a lot of different physical activities around the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been thoroughly fantastic to chat to you. So, thank you for spending the time with me this morning. The Ironman story is truly inspiring for everybody. And I'm sure we've all kind of. I can't swim, or I can't run, or I can't bike, or what have you. So the idea that you could only swim across a width, before you started doing Ironman, I think is truly inspiring. And then, of course, this charity, Silverfit, will put all the the show notes and the details of all that so people can find out more. And maybe if people are really passionate about it, maybe they could set up something in their own local area or model it on what you've done. So a really, truly inspiring story, Eddie. I really appreciate your time today. So is there anything you wanted to mention before we go that I haven't covered?
Yeah, I mean, I just would a slight plea, really, that if anybody felt that they could pledge any contribution towards our costs of RAM, which are significant, that would be great to hear. If any of the companies you're working with, would like to sponsor us, that too would be fantastic.
and obviously we'll put links to the website and your email address and all that type of thing on the show notes for the podcast. And once again, I thank you for your time this morning, Eddie.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
A big thank you to the hugely inspirational Eddie Brocklesby for joining me for this episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast. It's wonderful to hear of the great work Eddie and the team are doing with Silverfit. If you'd like to find out more about Eddie's latest challenge, the infamous Race Across America, then please visit retirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll find the show notes and some useful links. If you enjoy this episode, please do leave me a review or subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Cafe podcast with Justin King. To find out more, you can find us online at theretirementcafe.co.uk.